to this evening's South Orange Maplewood Board of Education meeting. Mr. Bonds, are we on the record? All right, thank you. This meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded for storage and viewing on our district website. The public can participate in the hearings of individuals and delegates by signing up for a sheet at the front door, signing up for live audio speaks, or written submission using the BOE questions forms on our website. Adequate written notice of this meeting of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education was sent to both townships and village clerks, the Star Ledger, the News Record, Tap Into Soma, and Village Green. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Bonds. Please note for the record that Dr. Taylor is absent this evening due to a family situation. And with that, can you please call the roll?
Board Member Susan Bergen. Board President Thayer Joshua.
Here.
Board Member Alyssa Malaspina.
Here.
Board Member Aaron Siders.
Here.
Board Member Kali Telsford.
Here.
Board Member Arun Badlamani.
Here.
Board Member Caitlin Whitletter.
Here.
Board Member Courtney Wingfield.
Here.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1 second here. I'd like to make a motion to hold this meeting virtually due to the governor's state of emergency. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Bergen. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Mr. Burnside, I'll now read the board's president statement. The school board meeting is a business meeting in public and not a meeting with the public. Oftentimes, it may appear to members of our audience that the Board of Education takes action with very little comment, and in many cases, a unanimous vote. Before a matter is placed on the agenda at a public meeting, the administration has thoroughly reviewed the matter with the superintendent. If the superintendent is satisfied that the matter is ready to be presented to the board, it is then referred to the appropriate board committee. The members of the board committee work with the administration and superintendent to ensure all members fully understand the matter. After the committee discusses the matter, it is then shared with other board members for consideration, and only then is it placed on the agenda for discussion and action at a public meeting. Thank you. I believe I'm missing the computer's a little slow. I believe public speaks is next on the agenda. Is that right? All right. Thank you. We are now at the time for our first public speaks, also known as hearings of individuals and delegates. This is an opportunity for you to share your concerns about an item on the agenda, but it's not a time for dialogue with the board. The board requests that you state your name and the town of residence for the record. We will set the time limit to, what do you got? All right, we'll set the time limit to 3 minutes, and we ask that you respect that time limit. We must cut you off so it does not appear as if we're giving anyone an advantage to share their views of another individual. Speakers have the full protection of free speech during public speaks. However, this forum does not protect you from the subject of your free speech pursuant libel or slander charges. Finally, the board recommends that all members of our community pursue the chain of command. Due to technical issues this evening, our timer on the screen is not working, so we'll be timing here up at the horseshoe. And again, we ask that you respect the 3-minute time limit. Our first in-person public speaks is from Ann Wessel Dreyer.
Good evening.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Ann Wessel Dwyer. I live in South Orange. It was my great privilege to teach at Columbia High School from 1993 to 2005. I retired from another school district in 2019. My husband and I were also privileged to send our children to the Soma schools. I remain a resident of the community and am actively involved in the district. Why was it a privilege to teach at CHS? When I interviewed for the position, I told the principal that I was looking for a professionally stimulating environment. She assured me there would be so many enriching opportunities, I wouldn't know what to pick from, and she was right. Off-site and on, I could explore with my colleagues how we could improve the quality of education in our classrooms and create a diverse community in which every student in this very special district felt valued. We were given time to meaningfully reflect and evaluate, and we collaborated, something my former colleagues have no time for today. I also belong to an incredible English department, supervised by a 9 to 12 high school department supervisor, a position that's been eliminated. We had weekly department meetings to discuss pedagogy. Our class sizes hovered around 20 students and sometimes fewer. We felt we were professionals and we were treated like professionals. That effective approach to education in this district is gone now. Teaching in Soma has become increasingly difficult with the advent of standardized testing, cell phones, social media, multiple safety drills, requirements to do your own evaluations, collect data, college rankings, elimination of department supervisors, and those highly beneficial department meetings. In an effort to save money, professional development opportunities have become bland meetings about logistics. Our schools have become schools where there's constant turnover of administrators with significant loss of institutional memory. Teachers are constantly subjected to the next new great idea. I left in large part because I was afraid I would burn out in this district. And now this district is on fire. You have inherited something that you didn't necessarily create, but it is yours to fix. You cannot allow our teachers to be subjected to salaries $10,000 to $20,000 less than the surrounding districts pay. 60 to 80 teachers leave the South Orange Maplewood School District every year, a good majority due to salary. Picture yourselves in an interview with one of your child's beloved young teachers. Tell that teacher that if she takes the job in our district, she'll make $5,000 to $10,000 less than she would make in the 5 other area districts that have offered her a position. Picture yourself with that veteran teacher who wrote your child's college recommendation over the holiday break and has done this for students over the past 20 years. And then tell him that the most he can hope for in
Thank you,
this
your
district.
time is up.
I just have like 3 sentences.
Thank you, your
Is-
time is up.
Anybody, could I have a little bit? Would you mind?
Thank you, your time is up.
Oh, okay, they can't cede me a little time? Thank you.
Our next public speaks is from Patrice Masson.
Mine are just regular reading glasses.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. If you can just read the last paragraph, if you can see it.
Good evening.
Good
My name is
evening.
Patrice Massang, and I am the chair for Samea's negotiations team. I'm just going to finish by reading this one, and then I'll continue to my own statement. We know that you want quality education and quality teachers, but in this community, we also pride ourselves on our commitment to social justice. Low salaries will lead to further loss of staff, but it is unjust to take advantage of the commitment that our teachers have made to our children and to our community. So start now with an equitable salary and then figure out how to provide our teachers the environment they deserve. Okay, so tonight, the Samea negotiations team stands before you ready to finalize a 3-year contract so that both the district and its staff can focus their efforts where they belong, on educating children. On February 15th, the district advised that it is willing to pay its teachers a 12% increase over 3 years as follows. 3.5% plus guide enhancement of $628,000 in year 1, 3.75% plus guide enhancement of $314,000 in year 2, and 2.75% plus guide enhancement of $314,000 in year 3. These numbers were publicized by the board on February 24th as 4.5% in year 1, 4.25% in year 2, and 3.25% in year 3. Thus, by the district's calculations, each 0.5% in salary increase is worth $314,000. From the start, Samea has maintained it needs a total salary increase of 12.74% over 3 years in an attempt to gain parity to pay in neighboring districts as follows: 6.14% in year 1, 3.3% in year 2, and 3.3% in year 3. In short, the district and Samea are 0.74% apart in position, which is only $464,720 away from an agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public speaks is from Rocio Lopez.
Rocio Lopez, Maplewood resident, president of Somaya. I'm going to keep her speech. As a result of a state employees agreement to Chapter 44, New Jersey gave every district that uses the state insurance program a rebate for February 2022. That means this month that ends today. Accordingly, the district was relieved from making insurance contributions in the amount of nearly $1 million this month, for which it had already budgeted. Thus, the district has a surplus of close to $1 million, which it had already budgeted to spend in its employees. So in agreeing to Somea's salary proposal of an additional $464,720, the district has the money ready, available without even investigating the extensive monies in allocated budget surplus from previous years. It likewise stands to reason Somea should not pay for their own salary increases by agreeing to provisions which allow administration to direct Columbia High School teachers to teach an additional 6 classes for a non-pensionable per diem rate, to direct the middle school teachers to serve as an additional duty without additional pay, or to direct elementary school teachers to lose part of their lunch to supervise students eating lunch at a reduced rate of pay instead of using lunch aids. So let's meet tonight. I'm serious. The association is ready here to set a contract. We're here tonight. We urge the board to meet with us in good faith tonight. We're even here without an NJEA rep to achieve the settlement, a settlement that is equitable to the teachers to ensure that the future quality of this educational system goes the way it's supposed to go. Please, let's do it tonight. So what do you say? I'm asking for real. We're ready. The negotiations team is here to get to a settlement tonight. I'm waiting for an answer.
Thank you.
No answer?
As I said at the beginning of every public speaks, this is a time for
No, I'm
you to
asking
talk to the board, but this is not a time for dialogue with the board. So thank you.
You have the opportunity to settle a contract tonight.
Our next public speaks is from Kate Walker.
Okay, well, I'll sit there. Hopefully you change your mind and you tell us if you want to settle tonight.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Kate Walker. I'm from South Orange, and I am on the leadership committee for SOMA for Safe Return to School. At last Thursday's board meeting, you heard from dozens of district parents and several brave students who asked you to reconsider outdated COVID restrictions and to shift policy based on new guidance from the state. The 1,000 members of our group urge you to move thoughtfully but urgently to align our district with the current guidelines and prioritize a return to normalcy for our children. We demand that lunchroom dividers be removed immediately. They have not been recommended in any kind of state guidance for schools since March of 2021,
nearly a year ago. Section 1.6 of page 7 of the Road Forward Health and Safety Guidance for the 2021-22 school year, issued by the New Jersey Department of Education and the New Jersey Department of Health, does not list partitions or physical barriers as a recommended mitigation factor in lunchrooms. These isolating barriers prevent meaningful social engagement for students, and it's an embarrassment that they are still being used. They need to come down immediately. This is a visual of the unbalanced burden of COVID safety that this district puts on small children. The above image is of a second grader at Marshall. His name is Caspian. He's sitting behind foggy plexiglass, unable to see or hear his peers while he eats. Below that is a picture that this district proudly showcased on Facebook of hardworking teachers enjoying a well-deserved lunch on National Pizza Day, February 15th. They are socializing and connecting with peers, enjoying the break from their grueling day, as they well should, and as is deemed safe by local health officials for every dining establishment in our 2 towns, including the Teachers Lounge. But our kids have to eat like Caspian, isolated, lonely, confused, that they can safely dine with friends at a restaurant in town, but not in school, while the adults of the district have different rules. This is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public speaks is from Pete Paschal.
Hello, board. All right, good evening. My name is Pete Paschal from Maplewood, and I'm in the leadership committee for SOMA for a Safe Return to School as well. We demand that recess protocols be consistent in all elementary schools and that they are consistent with the new outdoor masks optional policy. The children should be allowed to mingle with other classes and share playground equipment. Town playgrounds have been open without restriction since the summer of 2020. During indoor recess, children should be free to play creatively and should not be subjected to remaining in their seats. This also needs to be consistent throughout all schools. School principals need to receive direction from the district to operate indoor and outdoor recess in a normal manner immediately. When the district issued their communication on indoor masking on February 22nd, it cited that a key factor for keeping the mask requirement in school was the lack of updated guidance from the state. That guidance came on February 24th. In our meeting with Dr. Taylor, town leaders and town and school health officials on February 23rd, you noted that contact tracing and how that works in a masks optional environment was a particular concern, especially in light of our already overworked school nurses. The new guidance from the state does not outline any new contact tracing measures when masks aren't worn. In other words, what we're already doing is sufficient. Dr. Taylor also noted as an example, how will students returning to school after a positive COVID test be directed to keep masks on per state guidance for days 6 to 10 if under privacy rules the teachers can't know who is tested positive? We'd argue that mask use on days 6 to 10 would be part of an expected parent and student compliance that's been baked into our COVID mitigation since day 1. Parents are expected to symptom check their children before school and disclose exposure and positive test results. Ensuring that their students come to school masked until day 10 after having COVID is just another example of expected parent compliance. In addition, since masks optional means exactly that, there will certainly be several students wearing masks on any given day. The presence of a mask alone does not convey COVID status. Are there other edge cases standing in the way of a masks optional policy? Let's talk about them. And let's treat the move to masks optional in our schools with the urgency it demands. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public speaks is from Gina Priotiasa.
Hello, good evening. My name is Gina Priotassa, and I'm from South Orange. And I'm also on the leadership committee for the SOMA Safe Return to School. On Friday, February 25th, the CDC reevaluated where indoor masks are necessary. Under these new metrics, Essex County falls squarely into the green, low-risk category, meaning the CDC considers it safe for everybody in the region to unmask in indoor settings, including schools. We need to continue to follow the guidance. Let's not get lost in the weeds here. The governor, the health department, and now even the CDC have given you a strong message and a clear path that it is safe for students and staff to remove masks in school if they choose to. Again, masks optional does not mean a mask ban. Your adherence to CDC and state guidance has been a hallmark of this district's COVID policies from day one. Let's continue to follow these rules. Eliminating plexiglass partitions, normalizing recess, and moving to masks optional are all within the recommended guidance from the state and federal institutions you've been following for 2 years. Let's continue to follow it out of the darkness now that we see the light at the other end. In Dr. Taylor's remarks after the public speak session last week, he said, "I don't want to harm children, but these policies are." Mental health and learning loss are happening now. You're not going to see it on the children's faces, but it's snowballing. And it's going to be the next huge focus in children's health for years to come. There's unequivocal data demonstrating that it's happening now. It can't be ignored, and we as parents will not allow it. We, the majority voice in this community and a primary stakeholder in this room, demand that all plexiglass come down, effective immediately. We demand that recess be normalized, effective immediately. And we expect a revised decision from the administration regarding the indoor mask mandate by next Monday, March 7th. You have the power to lead our children out of this time, and it's time you do so.
Thank you. We'll now move on to audio public speaks. And our first audio public speaks is from Joel Barkin. No? Okay, we'll now move on to written public speaks. Our first written public speaks is from, oops, sorry, here. Oh, you guys don't have it? Okay, 1 second. Oh, hold on 1 second, sorry. I'll do it this way. Okay. Apologies for the delay. You have it now. Yeah, you should both have it now. Thanks. Our first written public speaks is from Sarah Griffiths of Maplewood. Members of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education, I would like to request that the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education and Administration reconsider their decision to continue mask mandate in our schools. The overwhelming majority of the public and private schools in New Jersey are moving to mask optional in accordance with Governor Murphy's new guidelines and the NJGOH recommendations. I think this would be the best for the educational future and mental health of our students. Please consider the following. NJDOH recommends that schools should require mask wearing in the following circumstances. When COVID-19 activity, the CALI is elevated, CALI score of high or very high, orange or red. District letter to families stated, the good news is that Essex County is currently at a moderate CALI score, and there has been a dramatic decline in COVID transmission in New Jersey and in our local community. The state issued updated guidelines on February 22nd for its schools and childcare centers as they prepared for universal mask mandate to be lifted on March 7th. District letter to families stated, one of the key factors in our determination is that we are still awaiting guidance from state health and education officials concerning how to prevent disease transmission and implement contact tracing, and quarantining if the indoor mask is lifted. Schools with much lower vaccination rates are choosing mask optional. District letter to families stated, there's a high vaccination rate among our teacher and staff population, over 90%, as well as our student population overall, ages 5 to 11, over 75% have received their first shots, ages 12 to 18, 90%. Please see below the list of schools that will be mask optional, including nearby schools in Essex County. Thank you for your time and attention. And that was, again, Sarah Griffiths of Maplewood.
The next public speaks is from Ryan Scott of Maplewood. Last night, we were informed our kindergartner at Tuscan did not have an assigned teacher for the foreseeable future, and that the school hoped to arrange a shifting roster of teachers to cover in 50, minute increments. This is not a safe environment nor one conducive to learning. The situation was entirely foreseeable and points to a lack of planning. There appears to be no urgency to correct the situation and to get our kids back into a classroom where they can be and feel safe and learn. That was from Ryan Scott.
The next public speaks is from Sinead Carew. Dr. Taylor and board members, we understand there is a staffing shortage, but we'd like to hear of new measures you're taking to prioritize the issue. My kid's kindergarten class at Tuscan is feeling the full weight of the problem now. We were told late Sunday that teacher coverage for his class would be planned on a daily basis based on the availability of staff, and that there may be a day or days when several teachers will be assigned class coverage in 50-minute intervals. The parents who received replies to their emails today were told they would not be given any idea of the next day's plan because the situation is so fluid. I had to call the school for confirmation. There was a teacher today as my child starts in pre-care. This is a class that already had very difficult and physical behavior problems under a substitute teacher who had them for a few weeks but has since left. We have concerns for the safety and well-being of the whole classes and have been severely distressed to hear of kids being scared to go back to school the next day. How could 50-minute teachers be a plan for such young kids who are having a tough time? When will you prioritize them? Sinead Carew from Maplewood.
Our next written public speaks is from Joanna Perlman of South Orange. Since the district has once again stepped away from the negotiation table, what is the district planning to do to make contract offers the teachers are willing to sign? We have some of the most enthusiastic, talented, and dedicated teachers in our district. What is the district doing to keep those teachers here? We cannot afford to lose the people who have made such a tremendously positive impact on our students. It is time that we consider the true worth of these educators and the value of their morale in addition to that of our students. And that concludes our first public speaks. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Burnside to give us an introduction to tonight's presenter.
Thank you, President Joshua. Tonight we have Andrew Hodjulik from PKF O'Connor Davies. He's going to present the Auditor's Management Report on administrative findings for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. Mr. Hodjulik?
Yes, hi. Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much. Mr. Board President, members of the board, pleasure to be here. I will try to run through this information quickly. I know you have a lot on your agenda. The review tonight is on the financial statements audit for the year ended June 30th, 2021. I want to mention we received excellent cooperation from all the members of the district in terms of the audit process. The reason for the delay in the receiving the report or the presentation of the report is that the state of New Jersey was very delayed in providing information that's necessary to include in your financial statements. That information was only received about 2 weeks ago, and they in fact extended the audit deadline through to March 15th in order to allow for the processing of the new information, what have you. There was a restatement required this year based on the implementation of GASB 84, which basically took a lot of the information that used to be reported in your trust and agency funds, and those amounts were moved over into your general fund or into your special revenue fund. So there was a lot of adjustments that would occurred with respect to last year's report to this year's report. Currently, we have an unmodified opinion on your financial statements, which means that the district's financial statements are presented fairly in according with generally accepted accounting principles on the basis of materiality. In terms of your financials, the district financial improved year over year. You have a balance still in your capital projects fund of significant amount for your various school projects. In terms of your debt had $150 million as of June 30th. You sold some additional bonds in December of 2021. That leaves you, your legal debt capacity is $294 million, and you have approximately $110 million remaining of that capacity based on your debt structure. We also have issued reports based on the single audit requirements, and those grants that were tested this year were the Coronavirus Relief, CARES Act, and Child Nutrition grants. As mentioned, there's a management report that the district also received, and there are no findings that require a corrective action plan that was submitted in the management report. So with that, if there's any questions on the financials, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Sorry, thank you for that. Board Member Malaspina, I see your hand is up.
Can you explain, is this delay via the state? Like, is everybody have this delay that we're getting?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, the audits could not be filed until we received the information with respect to GASB 75 until such time as that was released. Matter of fact, we were trying to work around the reporting issue. We actually had contacted the ACPA and the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And basically, the department has said, no, we do not want any reports issued without this current GASB 75 information included in the financials.
So I guess everybody else is doing the same thing, which is having like draft proposals and meetings.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and again, obviously, this is where it's in a draft form. It's really, I don't foresee any changes, but it has to go through what's called our quality control review process still. And, I don't suspect that there's going to be any changes in terms of numbers, whatever, but there could be an I, dotted I here, a T cross, whatever, that, make it change. But, so in order to move the process along, we're going through a draft presentation.
Great, thank you so much. I was confused by that, so that was very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And just for everyone's information, Board Member Malaspina and others, that I know, in conversations with someone from NJSBA recently, and a lot of boards are going through this right now. They're having their audit presentations delayed, and it's affecting the whole situation this year, as Mr. Burnside could tell us. With school financing has been delayed because of things at the state level, and then also the governor's address being delayed a couple of weeks. So we're just all on a delayed timeline this year.
Mr. Hodulek, in your opinion right now, will there be any recommendations or findings for the district?
Currently, no, there are no findings or recommendations that require a corrective action plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know if Dr. Taylor was here this evening, he would thank the staff for putting together a budget or a presentation with findings where there are no findings. So on behalf of the board, thank you to Dr. Taylor and the administration for, in a year of transition, I would say, that to still have a audit with no findings is wonderful. So thank you all. Any other questions for our special guest this evening? Thank you, sir. You have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are now at the time for our second public speaks. The board requests that you state your name and town of residence for your record. Let me start over, sorry. We're now at the time for our second hearings of individuals delegates, those public speaks, opportunity to share concerns about the item on the agenda, but not a time for dialogue with the board. Request that you state your name and town of your residence for the record. We will set the time again to 3 minutes for each speaker and ask that you respect that time limit. We must cut you off so it doesn't appear as if we're giving anyone an advantage to share views over another individual. Speakers do have the full protection of free speech during public speaks. However, this forum does not protect you from the subject of your free speech pursuing libel or slander charges. And finally, again, the board always encourages members of our community to pursue the chain of command. We will go back to the online first because we did have someone who was trying to dial in before and we couldn't get to, so we'll start there again. Mr. Bonds, is Joel Barkin on the line? Okay, thank you. We'll now resume our in-person public speaks. You could have just stayed.
Well, you decided to do that, so.
All right, our our next speaker is Rocio Lopez.
Okay, Rocio Lopez, Burnett Avenue in Maplewood. So we're here. We're actually here to negotiate. We're not joking. We have the people from the negotiations team and some of the executives that will leave. And the negotiations team will stay here, even if we have to stay here the whole night to get to that agreement. As you know, having salaries like that for a single person like myself is pretty much living in poverty. And I'm okay, eating, cheap food and going to work. I'm happy with that, but I can't see my colleagues that make less money than me living like that. So there is a point where, you know how you live, you know the places you go to eat, you know the colleges that you send your kids. So what's going on? Let's just do it. We're not asking for much. You saw it. You saw the salaries. You saw the numbers. The numbers are very clear. This is not about percentages. This is about salaries. This is about livelihood of people. This is having your teachers being in poverty in order to teach here. Who's going to choose that? We need the best educators here. We love this district. We love our children. It's enough. We all have to get out of politics, out of everything. Let's do what we're supposed to do. At least some kind of salary that pairs us up a little bit so we can keep working here. Do you really want us all to go? Is that what you want? Seriously, that's how it feels. Everybody that is being given like 10, 15, 20 years to this district, that's how they feel. They feel that you want us to go to get new teachers that are cheaper so you can save money. But guess what? That doesn't work. You hear the parents, my son doesn't have a teacher. We can't find anyone. Why are we doing this? The money is there. Every year, you have more income than what you put in your budget. There is a trend. So let's negotiate, get it over with, and everybody can go back to their normal lives. Our lives are not gonna get so much better for $5,000, but at least we're gonna breathe. At least I'm gonna be able to take my kids out one day to have a dinner in towns. Have you seen me in towns having dinner with my children? And I live here from like a year ago? That says it all. So are we negotiating, yes or no? I'm serious. And I'm in the top of the salary guide with 2 master's degrees. Are we doing it or not?
Thank you. Any other public speaks this evening? All right, that concludes our second public speaks. We'll now move on to new business this evening. Does anyone have any new business?
I do.
Board Member Whitletter.
I would like to propose at this time that we update policy number 1648.11, the road forward COVID-19 health and safety, to include specific language that requires SOMSD align the district's COVID-19 health and safety policies to the recommendation of both the CDC and NJDOH as soon as March 7th, 2022. As recently as this past Friday, the CDC stated that those living in communities with low to medium COVID-19 levels can stop wearing masks. CDC has graded Essex County low, and as such, people may choose to mask at any time, and people with symptoms, a positive test, or exposure to someone with COVID should wear a mask. While this is the most recent guidance, it is not the only one from the CDC that the district has ignored. The district continues to implement COVID-19 related policies that have long been discarded by the CDC, including partitions and outdoor masking. Moreover, the district has not given any indication to the community or our board as to what data is driving their policies. I do not believe such district policies to be sound if they are incongruent to data and facts presented by the CDC and the state. Policy 1648.11 also states all revisions to orders affecting this policy and corresponding appendices shall be reviewed by the superintendent with the board attorney, school physician, and Board of Education if appropriate. I would like to remove the language if appropriate, as it has become clear to me that the Board of Education should have a seat at the table to represent the needs of our families, especially when it comes to policy. I want to conclude by stating that the policy recommendations I'm suggesting this evening are not a reflection of my feelings on masking. My concerns center around the broad response by our community stakeholders to a lack of information and transparency from the district about what data is being used to determine key health and safety policies. We are hindering ourselves and eroding trust due to a lack of robust two-way dialogue with and within the Board of Education and our district families, and a severely outdated COVID-19 mitigation policy as currently written. These are complicated issues, and I'm not seeking to minimize them. What I am seeking to do is ensure that our key health and safety policies align with and are being driven by science, data, and guidance from top medical and public health experts. I'd hope and expect that others on this board would support the basic objective and my proposed policy changes, and if not, to clearly explain why. We as a board have upheld the idea of making more data-driven decisions in this district. Why aren't we holding our COVID-19 policies to the same standard? Science is real. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to get Ms. Butler to weigh in on the policy first from a legal perspective before I come to anyone else for comments.
And certainly if there is a request for the policy to be reviewed, it needs to go back and be reviewed by the policy committee. And any changes would have to be made there and recommended up, or if there is another agreement as to a process, but it's not something that can be done tonight. It needs to go through the two-read amendment process. It's just a question of whether it gets kicked off by the policy committee or the policy committee refers it to another committee.
Thank you for that. Board Member Bergen.
Thank you. So as chair of the policy committee, I can say that the 1600 series of policies is something that is sort of owned by the policy committee, not by another committee, and that this policy is something that we took straight from the boilerplate from Strauss Esme, the law firm that creates policies for districts all over the state. So we can add it to the agenda for the March policy meeting, but I would like to have more information about where the if appropriate comes from, if it comes from a statute or an executive order, or if it's something that we have flexibility with. And I think that, I don't know if that if appropriate is related to, in general, the role of the board versus the role of the district, or if there's more to it in the statute or executive order.
Thanks. Board Member Mousemean, I presume your hand is about the new business. I just want to confirm that before I go back to anyone else. I know you had your own new business. I just want to make sure because I see your hand is up.
It is about, I have my own new business, but I'd like to comment on this topic.
Okay, go ahead.
Which is, I agree with Board Member Bergen. I think we have to understand the legalities of this, and because it was a boilerplate issue, and I mean a boilerplate one that we took. So I think I'm happy to, I'm also on policy committee. I'm happy to review it during the March meeting, but, as she said, I think we need to make sure that we're following all legal laws and understanding exactly what the unintended consequences might be of making a change like that. So, I'm happy to see it in March, but other than that, I don't think we can do anything tonight.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Malaspina. Board Member, what letter did you, I saw your hand back up. It's on the corner of my eye. All right.
I do know that
Okay.
in other districts, the Board of Education is involved in this process, so I think that there are other districts that are doing it that we could hopefully, look at and use that language. But I don't know, when you reference unintended consequences, if that was in reference to board engagement or not, but there are other districts that are doing this.
I think she was referring to just the policy changes itself, I believe, but I'll let her. Board Member Malaspina.
Sure, I was, when I said unintended consequences, I meant everything. I meant legality-wise, if that's something we can do, policy-wise, procedure-wise. I want to understand what administration feels, is the best move for this. I think that, this is, I've always been in favor personally of the Board of Ed being more involved, but I need to understand more before I can even make those decisions.
Okay, thank you. Any others on this topic? Okay, I know your hand is down, Board Member Malaspina, but I know you had new business, so I'm coming to you next.
I did. I was wondering if there was a way that we could get a list of the board members could get a list of the people who have spoken in terms of like email list or something like that, if they've written in or they've spoken at the board meeting, because I know that there were a number of children who spoke so eloquently at this last week's, it seems like a month ago, meeting. And I always believe in writing back to the children because I just think it's so important that they take the time to advocate. And I was wondering if we could get an email list or something like that for not only the children, but in general for the public. If they're taking the time to speak to us, we should, email back if we can.
Well, again, I just want to remember, as we say, public speaks is not necessarily a time for dialogue with the board, so I understand that, but I do understand the sentiment of wanting to thank, and I do believe I thanked all the children who spoke as they spoke on Thursday evening. I'm sure it was past some of their bedtimes, so I do appreciate them having, advocating for themselves, so we can work on getting out a list. I also know that we do keep the list for the record, but I don't know if necessarily dissemination might not be what they signed up for, so I just want to clear that up, but we can get you that information. I see Ms. Butler nodding, so I guess I'm on the right track here.
Yeah, we can certainly discuss what parameters would be imposed if necessary.
Okay, I would like to discuss that at some point, just because I feel
Absolutely.
Right, so the thing is, I think the thing is, like, for instance, like, when you sign up in person, right, like, the mechanism is a little different, so they should be afforded the same, just because someone signed up in person, we wouldn't just like all of us call them to say thank you. So I just want to make sure we're on the same wavelength here, just depending on the method.
Saying that for in general, at least.
No. Understood. All right. Any other comments on this one before I ask about any other new business this evening? Okay, closing new business, and with that, I'd like to make the following motions. The Board of Education will hold a budget hearing Wednesday, March 16th, 2021, I believe it's at 6:30 p.m. Here at 525 Academy Street in Maplewood in the district meeting room, as well as using an online video conference platform. Action may be taken. The Board of Education will meet in executive session Monday, March 21st, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. in the Superintendent's Office, 525 Academy Street in Maplewood, as well as using an online video conference platform to discuss personnel, legal, and negotiations and other items to be decided at a later date. Immediately following that executive session, the Board of Education will meet in public session 7:30 p.m. Monday, March 21st, 2022, here in the district meeting room at 525 Academy Street in Maplewood, as well as using an online video conference platform. Action will be taken. May I have a second? Second, thank you, Board Member Wingfield. All in favor? That is unanimous. Mr. Burnside, I'd now like to make a motion for the Board of Education to adjourn to executive session to discuss legal, personnel, and negotiation issues. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Board Member Bergen. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This meeting is now, we are now adjourning to executive session. We will now be returning to public session. It is 8:03 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. Good night.